falls in love with the prince, and because of that, she has to lose her voice. But by the end, she gets her voice back.
And so that has been my approach. Very different, though, I think, than being royalty or being even a movie star.
That's what Oprah Winfrey wants her legacy to be. But guess what? It's not. It's not Mrs. O, because you were snookered by the biggest liars in history. And you're now trying to backtrack on those lies because you know that your reputation was shot the moment that you allowed Prince Harry and Meghan Markle to try and bring down the British royal family with a tissue of untruths.
A lot of people remember that interview as a princess, opening up and sharing her deepest feelings with someone she trusted. But another way to look at it is this. Two of the biggest and most influential women in entertainment sat together in a California garden, and each walked into that conversation hoping to get something valuable out of it. 5 years later, people are still arguing about what really happened, and now fresh debate has brought the whole situation back into the spotlight. The arrangement that once looked powerful is being questioned from every direction, and many are taking a much closer look at what each person may have gained from that moment. From this point of view, both sides appeared to benefit.
First, she reveals the interview. She hit back at suggestions that the couple didn't know what they were going to be asked. She then admitted that she had told Prince Harry and Meghan that this was all about a win-win. This is gonna be good for you guys.
Meghan wanted a chance to tell her side of the story and improve how many people viewed her, while Oprah landed one of the most talked about interviews in years, drawing a massive audience. Each left with something they wanted, while the royal family faced intense criticism and worldwide headlines. When you look beyond the emotional moments, some people see the interview not just as a personal confession, but as a high-profile media event where both sides had something important to gain. These were two public figures who had spent years carefully shaping how the world saw them. When they came together for that interview, some critics argued it wasn't just an emotional conversation, it was also a carefully planned media moment where both sides stood to gain something important. Now, years later, the conversation has shifted. As fresh attention lands on that interview, many people have noticed how both women seem eager to move past it.
And it's gonna be good for me. So they sat down to film for the 3.5 hours, and Oprah thought that her career legacy was set. Instead, as we'll soon see, she's now desperately trying to explain why she encouraged Meghan Markle's lies rather than challenged them.
Meghan has appeared in lighter, family-focused television projects, while Oprah, during a recent Vanity Fair interview, looked uncomfortable when asked to revisit that famous broadcast, quickly brushing it aside as if it belonged to another chapter entirely. Don't mistake that reaction as proof that the debate is over. For many observers, it's about protecting long-built public images. The story that once dominated headlines is being re-examined from every angle, and with opinions changing, neither side appears eager to stay closely connected to the controversy as more questions continue to surface. Instead of focusing on just one person, it's worth looking at both sides. The interview wasn't created by one individual alone. It happened because two powerful media figures agreed to sit down together, and each had reasons for taking part. That's why many commentators argue the discussion should include everyone involved, not just one side of the story. As for Oprah, some have questioned the popular idea that the interview happened purely because of friendship or principle.
They didn't know, obviously, anything that I was going to ask them, but I had said to them ahead of time, I'm going to try to cover everything. This interview took 3.5 hours. And as is always the case for me, I was just trying to carefully go through everything that had come up.
Critics have pointed out that high-profile conversations with members of the royal family had long been considered major television opportunities. From that perspective, this interview represented a rare chance to secure one of the biggest exclusives in media. According to that view, it wasn't simply about Meghan, it was about finally landing an interview that would capture worldwide attention and become one of the most talked about television events in years. Here's another point that many people bring up when looking back at the interview. Long before Meghan entered the picture, Oprah was widely reported to have wanted an interview with Princess Diana. At the time, Diana was one of the most recognized and admired women in the world, so any conversation with her would have been a historic television event.
in the past.
No, you weren't. You were just admitting that you wanted it to be a win. You weren't talking about it being a win for the truth or a win for journalism or a win for the British royal family. You were talking about it being a win for Harry and Meghan and for you.
According to long-standing reports, those efforts never led to an interview. Diana was said to have responded politely while keeping her personal boundaries in place. Years later, there were also reports that Oprah hoped to interview Prince William and Catherine, but those opportunities never came together either. Whether by choice or circumstance, those conversations simply didn't happen. To critics, that history makes the Meghan interview stand out even more. They argue that senior working royals generally preferred to keep personal family matters away from major television exclusives, while Meghan chose a very different path by agreeing to speak publicly. That decision created one of the biggest media moments in recent memory and sparked debates that are still going strong today. From that perspective, the interview wasn't necessarily the result of a close personal friendship. Instead, some commentators see it as a situation where both sides recognized a major opportunity.
Ash Panda asking, why do you think she's bringing this all up now? Stephanie Sidley replies, because Harry and Meghan are backpedaling on the racism claims. But the royal grift ain't happy. Maybe I should post the full unedited interview on X so we don't have a rewriting of history. Fuck you, Oprah. You knew what you were doing with this script.
Meghan had a chance to share her experiences with a worldwide audience, while Oprah secured one of the most talked about interviews of her career. Whether people view that as smart media strategy or something more controversial, many agree that each side walked away with something significant, and the public conversation surrounding that interview has never truly faded. To some critics, that interview wasn't the huge victory it was made out to be. They argue it was simply the biggest royal interview that was actually available, and now, years later, many of the people involved seem far less eager to revisit it. As public opinion continues to shift, the excitement surrounding that moment has been replaced by fresh questions and renewed scrutiny. If you believed Oprah's famous warmth was completely effortless, plenty of online commentators have challenged that idea over the years.
This is in regards to, and you know it's what went viral, you know it's what went around the world. Were you silent or silenced? And Oprah is now trying to make this extraordinary argument. And I mean, I say extraordinary in the sense that it's totally not believable, that this action was designed to push Meghan Markle into whether she was actually telling the truth.
They argue that her calm voice, thoughtful pauses, and emotional questions were also part of a highly polished interviewing style designed to encourage guests to open up. Whether people see that as genuine empathy or skilled television depends on who you ask, but it's become a major point of debate. Another criticism that often comes up is the amount of control surrounding her interviews. As the host and producer, Oprah had significant influence over the finished program, including how conversations were presented to viewers. Critics argue that when one side controls both the questions and the final edit, the balance of power naturally shifts. Even if guests feel comfortable during the interview, the finished broadcast is ultimately shaped by the production team before it reaches millions of viewers. Then there's another pattern that critics frequently point to. Over the years, Oprah has helped introduce several high-profile personalities to massive audiences, and some of those figures later became surrounded by serious controversy. Whenever those situations unfolded, commentators often noted that Oprah appeared to distance herself from the headlines.
You've done this job for a very long time. You don't do that. What you say is you say, oh, wow, Meghan, who told you couldn't speak? We need the names. We've got to call these people out. When did they say that? Who are you referring to? Are you sure? You know, the courtiers say they offered to help you and give you whatever you needed. But she didn't do that, did she?
While public attention focused on the individuals involved rather than the platform that helped elevate them. Whether that criticism is completely fair remains a matter of opinion, but it's one that has followed her career for years. Detractors argue that she has often been close to controversial stories without becoming the central focus of the backlash herself. Supporters, on the other hand, see those outcomes as the responsibility of the individuals involved. Either way, the debate over her influence and the role she has played in shaping some of the biggest media moments of the past few decades continues to generate strong reactions today. One of the strongest criticisms aimed at Oprah in recent years is the claim that her carefully built public image has become just as important as the stories she tells. Some critics argue that her work with charities, schools, and emotional television specials has helped shape a reputation that makes it easier for audiences to trust her.
She made one movement, finger to her mouth, and she now claims that gives her some type of journalistic integrity. I don't think so, Oprah.
Supporters see those efforts as genuine, while detractors believe they also serve to strengthen her public brand. That debate has only grown louder over time. During the public discussion surrounding the Maui wildfires, Oprah faced criticism over her own actions. Rather than satisfying everyone with her response, some viewers felt she focused too heavily on explaining the criticism she received and how it affected her personally. To those critics, it seemed like the conversation shifted away from the original concerns and toward her own experience, adding another chapter to an argument that has followed her for years. Another point often raised is that Oprah has rarely faced lasting damage when people or products connected to her later became controversial.
I was silent.
Were you silent or were you silenced?
The latter.
Okay.
She's
Very
embarrassed.
nice. I don't think I've done it since. I don't know where the hell that came from. Whoop. Okay. And I wanted to be clear. Was she silenced? Were people telling her not to talk? That's why I said that. I said it for clarification.
Over the years, several guests, public figures, and endorsed products received enormous exposure through her platform before later attracting serious criticism. Commentators frequently note that, despite those headlines, the long-term reputational fallout has usually landed more heavily on others than on Oprah herself. Critics also point to the enormous influence she has had behind the scenes. She wasn't simply the person asking questions. She also had significant control over how many of her programs were produced and edited. From that perspective, they argue she was in a powerful position to shape how stories reached the public, giving her more influence than the average interviewer ever could. Even some of her most celebrated television moments have been revisited over the years.
Because I didn't want later to hear, well, no, it wasn't that. It really was that I was silenced. They wouldn't let me talk. So it was all for clarification.
Bullshit, Oprah. You've literally just said what you should have asked. Were people telling her not to talk? You didn't ask that. You played into a lie. And as a result, your legacy is now trashed, and you know.
The famous car giveaway, for example, later sparked discussion because recipients were generally responsible for taxes and related costs tied to those prizes. While the giveaway became an unforgettable television event, that detail surprised many people afterward and added another layer to the conversation. Viewed through that lens, critics argue that Oprah has consistently protected her public image during moments of controversy. So when people see her distancing herself from the Meghan interview today, they interpret it less as a moral decision and more as another example of carefully managing her role in a story before the public narrative shifts once again. All right, let's turn to Meghan, because this is where the debate becomes even more heated. While opinions about Oprah have been argued for years, Meghan continues to divide audiences in a very different way. One criticism that has spread widely online is the idea that her public image changes depending on the situation or the people around her. Critics point to different periods of her life and argue that her interests and presentation seem to shift alongside new relationships and new chapters.
Play her this old clip from 2021 where basically during the pandemic, when people are locked in their homes, they're struggling to pay their bills, their businesses have been shut down, Oprah, Meghan Markle, and Prince Harry sat around in a massive mansion, I believe owned by Rob Lowe, and complained about how hard their lives were. Now, this is when Meghan Markle stopped being relatable to anybody. People are locked in their homes. People are dying.
Some have claimed that when she was dating a chef, food became a major part of her public identity. Later, after meeting Prince Harry, people began comparing parts of her style and fashion choices to those of his late mother, Princess Diana. Those comparisons generated endless headlines, although they remain matters of public opinion rather than established fact. The bigger criticism, according to many commentators, isn't about clothing or hobbies at all, it's about storytelling. They argue that Meghan has consistently presented events through a personal narrative.
Their family members are on life support, right, on incubators, and she's sitting there complaining how hard it was for her to live in a palace and be in the royal family eating crumpets and scones. And Oprah realized after that interview, in my opinion, because of all the reporting and all the lies that were debunked, Oprah realized she was used. Meghan Markle is a con artist, and she used Oprah Winfrey to launder her image,
in which she explains her perspective, while others become the focus of criticism. Supporters say she's simply sharing her experiences, while critics believe those accounts often leave out important context. That disagreement has fueled years of public debate and shows no sign of disappearing. Critics also argue that many of the relationships surrounding Meghan have appeared closely tied to different stages of her public life. Whether that perception is fair or not, it's become another frequent talking point among people who closely follow her career and media appearances.
She was gunning for this interview. She started poaching Harry and Meghan about a sit-down 6 months before they were wed. She was desperate to sit down with Princess Diana, kissing her butt, sitting across from her at Kensington Palace, trying to get Diana to give her an exclusive. Diana lovingly wrote her a note that was like, no way.
Now compare those criticisms with her recent television appearances. Meghan has appeared on MasterChef Australia, speaking warmly about cooking and describing food as her love language, and an important way she connects with family and the people closest to her. For supporters, those comments fit naturally with her lifestyle. For critics, however, they raised fresh questions about consistency, with some wondering whether this was another example of a carefully crafted public image rather than a completely spontaneous one. That reaction quickly spread across social media, where countless users questioned the timing and authenticity of the appearance. Whether those doubts are justified depends on who you ask, but once again, Meghan found herself at the centre of another lively public debate, and the online conversation showed no signs of slowing down. Critics have also pointed to Meghan's family relationships, noting how publicly complicated they have become over the years. Her father watched the royal wedding from home rather than attending in person.
You watched it the more you thought, Oprah, come on, that's not true. Challenge that. Ask her. If she says there's racists in the royal family, who are they? You know, it was a remarkably uninquisitive interview, wasn't it?
Nothing's more compelling than watching a 40-year-old man complain that his allowance has been cut off.
And her long-running disputes with some relatives have played out very publicly. Those family tensions have remained part of the discussion ever since, even as different accounts continue to circulate about what happened behind the scenes. Her recent cooking and lifestyle content has sparked another wave of online reactions. Social media has been filled with jokes and memes about the carefully arranged recipes and colourful food displays, with many users poking fun at how polished everything appears. Whether people find it charming or overproduced, the response has been impossible to ignore, and the internet has certainly had plenty to say about it. Critics have also revisited claims about Meghan's time as a working royal. Multiple reports over the years have described concerns raised by some former palace staff, with allegations that formal complaints were made and that certain employees found the working environment difficult. Meghan has disputed allegations about her conduct, and many aspects of those reports remain publicly contested. Even so, the contrast between her warm on-screen image and those past reports continues to fuel debate.
By daddy.
I mean,
by daddy.
Daddy cut off his allowance at 40 years old. Daddy's no longer putting gas in the Range Rover. Daddy's no longer paying the phone bill. Oh gosh, my sympathies are with you, child.
Yeah.
But you know,
Heartbreaking.
The branding itself has become another talking point. From locally sourced honey to edible flower products sold through her lifestyle brand, nearly every new release has generated discussion online. Some customers praised the products, while others posted negative reviews or shared complaints about their experience. Whatever the reaction, each launch quickly becomes another headline, proving that almost everything connected to Meghan now attracts intense public attention and strong opinions from every direction. Only a few months earlier, reports claimed Meghan's team objected when a judge referred to her using a royal title. Then, not long afterward, a television promotion described one of the featured dishes as being fit for a duchess. Critics were quick to point out what they saw as an inconsistency, arguing that royal titles seem to be challenged in some situations, but highlighted in others when they add value or attract attention. That contrast immediately became another topic of debate online.
She thought Oprah Winfrey, who was beloved by Black women across the country, could come on camera and rehabilitate her and make her this victim. This is during Black Lives Matter. You guys have to remember what was going on in 2020 and 2021. She really tried to use Oprah, and Oprah Winfrey has not said anything positive about her since then.
What's especially interesting to many observers is that Oprah isn't the only high-profile figure who has been described as creating more distance in recent years. Whether those reports are entirely accurate or not, they have fueled speculation that several once-friendly relationships have cooled over time. Royal biographer Angela Levin has publicly argued that Oprah and Meghan are no longer close, adding yet another layer to the ongoing discussion surrounding both women. There have also been claims about mixed public reactions at events in Montecito, along with rumours circulating online about how some local residents and public figures view Meghan. Those stories remain difficult to verify, but they continue to spread across social media and entertainment news, showing how closely every appearance is watched and analysed.
What mother or father in the name of sweet Jesus has enough time to create a fruit plate at 6 o'clock on a Monday morning when there's toast throwing around the room? And her kitchen was just sterile and awful, and I hate her. I'm so sorry, I really do.
Meanwhile, Meghan's recent media projects have received very different reactions from audiences and critics. Some reports highlighted disappointing viewing figures for her lifestyle series compared with other programs on the platform, while online discussions questioned how certain award nominations were received. Critics pointed to those numbers as evidence that public enthusiasm may not match the amount of media attention surrounding her projects, while supporters argued that ratings alone don't tell the whole story. Whatever conclusion people reach, one thing is clear. Every new project, interview, or public appearance sparks another round of headlines and online debate.
If you want to keep your privacy, then don't go out. If you want to go to a restaurant and you want to have, you're having out to dinner with Stedman and Stedman was like, why people are coming up all the time, then let's stay home and eat.
The conversation has grown far beyond a single interview, with each development becoming another piece of a much larger public discussion that continues to evolve. Prince Harry also faced setbacks in his legal battles that attracted widespread attention. In one high-profile case against the publisher of the Daily Mail, many of his claims were dismissed by the court. Harry strongly criticised the outcome and described the process as unfair, but those comments were met with pushback from several public figures. A former UK Justice Secretary publicly called the criticism of the judge over the top and unacceptable, while others in the media also challenged Harry's response.
First of all, it was an absolute resounding beating. It was thrown out, and the judge was almost annoyed that this had got as far as it had.
Critics argue that support from some influential figures has become less visible over time. Reports have suggested that financial backing and professional partnerships have changed, while rumours about strained relationships have continued to circulate. Some business deals have evolved or ended, and public polling in various surveys has shown mixed or declining approval ratings for both Harry and Meghan. Online petitions and social media campaigns have added to the impression that public opinion remains deeply divided. From that perspective, commentators argue that when public momentum begins to shift, some high-profile allies naturally become more cautious about staying closely connected to controversial stories.
People were perplexed. When Harry started this, when he went after the Daily Mail, this was for stories a long time ago. Talk about holding a grudge. Talk about not being able to move on.
Whether that's fair or simply the reality of public life is open to debate, but many observers see it as a common pattern whenever major public figures face sustained criticism. Looking back, many critics now describe the 2021 interview as something very different from the emotional conversation it first appeared to be. In their view, it wasn't simply journalism or a personal discussion between close friends. Instead, they argue it was a media event where both sides had clear reasons for participating. Meghan gained a platform to tell her story to a worldwide audience, while Oprah secured one of the biggest television exclusives of her career. Whether people agree with that interpretation or not, the interview remains one of the most debated media moments of the decade, and its impact continues to spark discussion years later. Critics argue that the interview ultimately benefited both sides. From their perspective, Oprah secured a rare conversation with a member of the royal family after years of trying to land a royal exclusive, while Meghan gained an enormous global platform to present her perspective. Whether people see that as smart media strategy or something more calculated depends entirely on their point of view, but many agree that both women had clear reasons for taking part. Years later, some commentators believe that the partnership no longer appears as strong as it once did. Meghan has faced mixed reviews for several recent projects, ongoing public criticism, and continued debate surrounding her media ventures. At the same time, critics argue that Oprah has been careful not to revisit the interview too often, leading some to speculate that she prefers to keep her distance as public opinion continues to evolve.
Him and Meghan present themselves as happier than ever, living in Montecito, and here's Harry, still fighting battles from decades ago, so nobody really understood why he was doing this.
For many royal supporters, the lasting impression has less to do with the interview itself, and more with how other members of the royal family responded. Admirers often point to Princess Diana's decision to maintain firm boundaries with the media during her lifetime, while praising Queen Elizabeth II's long-standing approach of avoiding public arguments and continuing with her official duties despite intense scrutiny. They also note that the royal family largely chose not to engage publicly with many of the claims, instead continuing their work without lengthy public back-and-forth exchanges. Whether people agree with those views or not, the interview remains one of the defining media moments of recent years. Even now, its legacy continues to shape conversations about celebrity, the monarchy, and the powerful role television can play in influencing public opinion.
I know from my sources he was advised not to do this. Any reputable lawyer that he spoke to in London would tell him this is almost impossible to prove and hence to win.
Critics argue that Meghan placed enormous importance on telling her story to the world, while Oprah provided one of the biggest television platforms imaginable to make that happen. Years later, some observers believe it's striking that Oprah now appears far less eager to revisit that interview. To them, it suggests that both women have become increasingly cautious about being closely linked to a broadcast that still sparks debate around the world. Looking back, many commentators see the interview as a moment where two highly influential public figures each gained something they wanted. Meghan reached a global audience with her perspective, and Oprah secured one of the biggest exclusives of her career. Whether people view that as a fair exchange, a calculated media strategy, or something else entirely is still fiercely debated, and opinions remain deeply divided. Now it's your turn to weigh in. Who do you think benefited more from that interview? Meghan, Oprah, or do you think they both gained exactly what they were looking for? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more in-depth discussions and analysis. There are plenty more stories coming soon, so stay tuned. You won't want to miss what's next.